Joining us on the phones right now, GOP political strategist Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing wonderful. Thanks for joining us today. Before we get to the upcoming State of the Union address, a couple of, statewide issues. Fundraising totals looks like they came in, and Beto O'Rourke out fundraising Senator Ted Cruz in the last quarter. Any concerns on the Cruz front, or is that just they didn't raise money? They didn't try to raise as much money as Beto did.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd say that the Cruz team should have any concerns yet. I think it was $2.4 million to $1.9 million in the fourth quarter. Not a huge difference. Keep in mind that Cruz has high name ID statewide to begin with. He also has, I think, $7 million in the bank, so he has a significant cash-on-hand advantage over O'Rourke. And, of course, O'Rourke is not as well-known. He's not well-known statewide. He's a third term, I think, member of Congress from El Paso. So he's known in El Paso, but not really outside the state. And so O'Rourke needs to be out raising Cruz. In fact, he needs to raise far more than he's raising. He probably needs $20 million, I would think, to have a chance to make this a competitive race. And I just don't know that I see a pathway for him getting from here to there. But he deserves credit for raising as much as he has so far. And he obviously is working hard, going around doing a lot of these events in small towns around the state of Texas. It would raise questions to me about whether he's doing his job as a member of Congress for an El Paso-based district if all he's doing is running statewide right now. But certainly, he has to feel good that he's being competitive, at least on a quarter-by-quarter basis with Cruz.
Other news from over the weekend statewide, the Texas State Republican Executive Committee voted Saturday to censure House Speaker Joe Straus, who, of course, is not running for re-election. He's on his way out. It was a 44-19 vote to censure the speaker. I guess what maybe some people would ask is, what was the point of this? What is the point of this? And what does this say about Straus and maybe, I guess, his legacy as we move on from the Straus years as Speaker?
Yeah, I think that this was an effort that was kind of formalizing, or I guess approving of similar censure resolutions that have been passed in a number of county GOP organizations, including in Bexar County and San Antonio. So I think the state party was being asked, look, do you support what these county parties have done? Now, look, this wasn't, I think, just about necessarily being, mean to Straus on his way out the door. It was really primarily a disagreement over policy. If you look at the special session agenda, the House really didn't even take up many of those items. I think maybe 11 of the 20 items ultimately didn't pass the House. I think the Senate passed 18 of the 20. And so a lot of people want to blame this on the bathroom bill, and I'm sure that was part of it, particularly for those folks who are socially conservative. But it's broader than that. It's Straus's continued resistance to ending the state collection of union dues, which is a total no-brainer. It's not, getting on the same page on property tax reform and playing games there. It's not passing the state spending cap. It's continuing to resist school choice. Why we wouldn't be for a free market and for competition in education makes no sense to me. And I know that that's oftentimes an urban versus rural issue. But you add all those things up, and I think there was a concern among the State Republican Executive Committee that if they don't stand up and sort of confirm what the county parties had been saying, that they weren't standing up for their own platform. And so, look, I understand this is a divisive step. I think a lot, certainly some of the more moderate, perhaps, business-aligned Republicans in the party felt like this was mean-spirited, unnecessary, divisive. And so, look, at the end of the day, I'm not sure it's going to matter all that much here before too long. All it was a censure resolution. It doesn't have some significant effect in the medium term. But it is, again, it's a reminder that, look, if you're running as a Republican, the Republican Party of Texas has a platform, and the activists expect you to advance conservative reforms along the lines of that platform. And if you aren't doing that, then you're not really living up to what the party expects of you, and they're willing to take steps to say that publicly.
Matt, tomorrow night, State of the Union address, President Trump's first State of the Union address. What are your expectations? What do you think the president will try and do tomorrow night?
Yeah, the first speech he gave was technically a joint session because he'd only been president for a few weeks, and so this is his first State of the Union. Look, I expect him to first kind of take a little bit of a victory lap on 2017. Significant range of accomplishments. I think he'll talk obviously about the very strong economy, passing the first tax reform bill in 31 years, which is already beginning to pay dividends to the economy and to taxpayers. Something like 2 million people have received bonuses already. I think he'll talk about repealing the individual mandate in Obamacare, having 13 federal judges confirmed, but in addition to Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch, the regulatory rollback. I mean, there's a long list of things I think he'll talk about. But really, I think the message from the speech is going to be the need for bipartisanship in 2018. They don't have a path to use 51 votes to do anything this year, certainly not anytime soon. They may have a path at the end of the year. So if they want to get anything on infrastructure, on DACA, and border security, on trade, on increasing spending on the military, they're going to need 60 votes in the Senate. So Democrats are going to have to move in his direction, and I suspect that means he'll have to move in their direction. So I think you might see a kinder, gentler Trump perhaps on Tuesday night with him reaching out to Democrats, particularly some of them by name, some of those 10 Democrats that are running from states that Trump won in 2016 that are up for re-election. That's kind of my expectation, but it'll obviously be very interesting to see.
In my morning brief today, I brought up with the State of the Union address and with President Trump, expect the unexpected. With President Trump, anywhere he goes, expect the unexpected. Do you think there will be any protest? Do you think there's going to be anything out of the ordinary from what we see in a State of the Union address that makes this more of a circus-like atmosphere?
Well, one thing, perhaps to watch is there some type of DACA protest? Every member of Congress has a certain number of tickets to the State of the Union for people who can sit up in the gallery. It's a small number, but you get, I think, 2 or 4 tickets. And so sometimes members of Congress, bring people who are essentially props. They do a press release saying they're bringing, such and such type of person. I saw some Democrats are bringing some dreamers. So it's possible you could perhaps see a protest. Those things are rare. They really are. I mean, everyone remembers the "you lie" moment during the Obama State of the Union with West Texas Congressman Naga Bauer standing up and saying something, or not really standing up, but saying something that got a lot of attention. Those moments are really, really, really rare in the State of the Union. If you're in that room for that speech, you recognize not only just kind of the history that you're living in during one of those addresses, but also just that if you were to do that, if you were to try to interrupt the speech in some way, Capitol Police would remove you immediately, and you'd have a pretty unpleasant night, I suspect. So I don't know. I certainly hope it goes off without incident. I mean, I did notice that one of the Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, said she's not going to attend. So
she always falls asleep anyway.
That's right. Yeah, so, she hopefully get to bed early. Yeah.
Yeah. Matt, tell folks how they can sign up for your newsletter, and then also what is in your latest podcast as well.
Absolutely. We do a morning news brief that we send. It's the statewide newsletter that we send by email every weekday. You can learn more at mustreadtexas.com. 3,000 Texans around the state receive it every day. And then the podcast is called Mac on Politics. Most recent episode goes into the text messages at the FBI, and we talked to Congressman John Ratcliffe of Texas, who has reviewed a lot of those texts, and as well as the Nunes memo. And we also have a former assistant director of the FBI, Ron Hosko, spent 30 years there. You can find it in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and on the web at maconpolitics.com.
Very good, Matt. We'll visit with you next week.
Thanks, Chad. Have a great week. Take care.
You too. Thank you. That's Matt Mackowiak, GOP political strategist. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO.